So we're going to finish this section talking about parallel lines and perpendicular lines. So a parallel line, which is also noted by these two little marks, because math people don't like to write out the word parallel, they're actually lines whose slopes are the same or equal. Now perpendicular lines, once again, we have a symbol for that. It's like an upside down capital T. Are lines whose slopes that are two things, and let's talk about that. If I had, here's one line. Now I'm going to try and draw a perpendicular line. There's a perpendicular line. Perpendicular just means that it's 90 degrees. Okay, so notice that this slope is a positive slope, and this one is a negative slope. So the first thing we know about perpendicular lines is that their slopes are opposites. So one is a positive and one is negative. So the next thing, you'll just have to take my word for it, because when I try and draw it, it never works out very well. They're going to be reciprocals of each other. In other words, if I have a slope that is, say, 5/7, then the slope of a perpendicular line would be opposite. So since this is plus, it would be a negative, and it would be 7/5. I would flip it. Or if I had a slope that was, let's say, -2, then the perpendicular slope is going to be positive, and think of that as 2/1, and I would flip it. So it would be 1/2. So if I want to determine if the following lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither, I really just need to look at their slopes. So look at the very first one. Let's see the slope of this one. See, it's -3, and the slope of the next line underneath it is -3. So we don't even have to graph those, right? We just say, oh, the slopes are the same, but look at the y-intercepts. The y-intercepts are different, so it's not the same line. So the slopes are the same, so they're going to be parallel lines. This one is -2/3. So for it to be a perpendicular line, first it's got to be positive, and then you got to flip it. So 3/2. So that is the case. It's flipped and it has opposite sign. So that is a perpendicular. Those two, if we graphed them, they would cross at a 90-degree angle. So what would these be? See, those are the same. So those are going to be parallel. Now this is a little bit harder, because you can't just look at number 4 and number 5 and see what the slope is, because it's not solved for y. So those get a little trickier just because you've got to solve this one for y. So we would have 5x plus 10y equals 10. I'm going to subtract my 5x. Notice all I'm doing is just solving it for my y. And then I'm going to divide by 10. So my slope is going to be -1/2 once I reduce it, right? Okay, and then this one, I'm going to solve that one for y as well. So you just have to do a lot more work when they don't have it already set, equal to y. Then I divide it by -6, so I get a +1/2. Okay, so this one is a -1/2. This one is a +1/2. So let's look at our conditions up there. The first thing is that they had to be opposites. So are they opposites? Yeah, one's positive, one's negative. Yes. Number 2, are they reciprocals? Well, the first one is -1/2. To be a reciprocal, this one would have to be 2/1. So that's not a positive 2/1. It's not a reciprocal. So that is not perpendicular. Also, the slopes aren't the same, so it's not parallel. So that's going to be neither. Okay? And then one more thing in this section is to determine if 3 points are collinear. Well, collinear just means they make a line. Make a line. So we want to be able to do this without actually having to graph it. Okay, the first one wouldn't be too difficult to graph, but that second one, you're not going to want to graph that. So if I know that this point and this point has a slope of, let's say, 3, and then I know this one to this one has a slope of 3, so, and they are connected. So this one is, so let's see, so this one is 3, positive 3 from the middle one, and this one is a slope of positive 3 from the middle one, then they're all going to be in a line. So that is the reason that you do this. All you're going to do is figure out the slope between these guys. So remember, my slope is going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If you ever forget that, look up the YouTube video Algebra Man Slope Song. I would sing it for you, but you might not like that too much right now. So I'm going to subtract. I'm going to take y, I'm going to let this be 0.1 and that be 0.2. So I'm going to say 3 minus 4. And then on the bottom, 0 minus a negative 3. You have to watch out for that double negative. So that's going to be a negative 1 and a positive 3. Okay, so the slope of that between those two lines is negative 1/3. Now we're going to try it between these guys. So I need to find out what that slope is. So that slope is going to be the same thing, y2 minus y1 or x2 minus x1. So I'm going to say, I'll let this be 1 and this be 2. So 1 minus 3 over 6 minus 0. So that's going to give me negative 2 over 6, which is also negative 1/3. So since these guys are equal, we know that the 3 points are collinear. They make a line. So that's all you have to do.